Welcome to my full body movement routine. You could use this for a warm up before a workout, or you could use this every day. We're using our body weight, so no exercise equipment is needed. First one is going to be a dead bug. So with our back nice and flat, drawing your belly button into the ground, we're going to alternate opposite arm and opposite leg. If this is difficult to do, you could relax your arms and just focus on your legs. If you're looking for a more challenging variation, we have single leg raises, keeping both legs raised up. We're going to alternate each side one at a time, lowering them nice and controlled while keeping that low back flat. The focus of these two exercises is to start engaging your core while creating some good hip and core control. Connecting those two, this is going to be very helpful for improving your low back pain. Next is going to be hip bridges. Now that we've worked on one side, we're going to work on the back side by thrusting our hips towards the ceiling, trying to get full extension throughout the body. To create a more challenging option, you can go single leg hip bridge. We're going to do the same thing, but you're going to pick one leg up off the ground and focus on driving the heel into the ground as the hips go up towards the ceiling. This one's going to help with the low back pain and each side of our hips. Next, we're going to flip on over to our hands and knees and perform a bird dog. So opposite arm and opposite leg are going to extend out while on our hands and knees. Again, you want to focus on keeping your core nice and tight, keeping good control, and not letting your low back arch too much throughout this movement. Focus on pressing the heel to the back ceiling. If you want to add a little more challenging or change to this exercise, these are bird dog taps. We're going to focus just on one side, keeping the muscles nice and contracted throughout the movement. Again, draw that core in, try not to overextend the back. Next is going to be a thread the needle. This is a great exercise for rotation, often missed when addressing low back pain. So you're going to be on your hands and knees. You're going to push or basically thread your hand under your other arm, reaching out as far as you comfortably can, and then extending up towards the ceiling. Here I like to really focus on dropping that shoulder towards the ground. You don't want to let those hips move too much, so we could really focus on your thoracic spine. That's going to be more of the upper body and shoulder area, and really focusing on the movement and rotation through here. A second variation, which tends to be a little easier for most people, is a T-spine rotation with your hand on the back of your head. You're going to pull that elbow to elbow and then extend it up towards the ceiling. I like to add this to the second piece to the thread the needle because it's a little more movement based, a little more speed added to it, where the other one is more of a stretch focus. So again, bring that elbow in. I like to inhale as I come in and exhale as I extend up. Next exercise, we're going to come up to a half kneeling position with one hand up towards the ceiling. We're going to bring the other hand down. This is a half kneeling windmill, so we're focusing on our lateral movement, trying to open up our hips, our core, while keeping our shoulders nice and stable. So a lot of things are happening here. So the knee that is up, we're also going to have the same arm up towards the ceiling, reaching that palm as we laterally bend to our side and try to bring the other palm down to the ground. We're going to give 3 to 5 reps on each side, focus on good controlled movement. Again, breathing through this, we don't want to be holding our breath. If you can't go all the way down to the ground, that's completely fine. Just find a distance that feels comfortable and challenging for you. After that, we're going to go into a child's pose with hands in front. We're going to push our heels towards our butt, and then we're going to move forward into a nice controlled knee push-up. When you go into the push-up, try to draw your shoulders down towards your heels and bring your chest to the ground. Make sure that if you aren't able to do the push-ups, that you're able to control to a distance that feels comfortable for you. And each day you want to challenge yourself to be able to get deeper into that push-up position. We're going to come up to a half kneeling hip flexor stretch. This is going to be great for anyone that tends to sit a lot, whether it's at a desk or in the car. Opening up the hips. We want to make sure that we're opening up the hips is going to help contribute to any low back pain or any lack of mobility in the hips. This is a 3-way hip flexor stretch where I'm focusing on my guts and butts are going to be nice and tight as I drive and lead with the hip. My foot's going to start in the forward position and then 45 degrees out, and then 90 degrees to the side. Find what feels comfortable for you. Next is a pigeon stretch with some mobility aspect to it. So getting into a deep pigeon stretch, you should feel in the outside of the hips and glutes. I like to move around, find different areas that are feeling tight and work through it. A lot of this routine, I tend to try to connect more mind and body connection. So I'm trying to feel and think about how things are feeling and how I can continue moving through it. Next, we're going to a kickstand position and working on the internal and external rotation of the hips. So you're going to be sitting back, pulling the toe up, and then rolling forward and pulling that toe down and then the heel up. So we're working on the femur of the leg going in and out. I believe internal rotation is one of the most overlooked movements for tight hips, one thing that we tend to ignore or just aren't aware of. Now I'm just going through a few different movements that I want to address my low back. So I go through some cat cows. From here, I'm going to go into what I call drunken cows. Basically, we're focusing on the flexion and extension of the spine. This next one here is a drunken cow where we're moving our hips throughout the cat-cow movement. So going back and forth, this is going to really help our QL, which is going to be our low back muscles that help us with our lateral bending and movement, which we often overlook. Next, I'm going to go to a kneeling forward fold and back extension. So moving back and forth, nice and controlled through this movement and breathing, inhaling in, exhaling as I open up. So I'm folding everything forward, folding my shoulders forward, and then extending everything back and reaching back. Next, we're going to address some of our wrist. So if you got tight wrists, it's going to be great for you. Again, take it slow and controlled. You could find different positions that work well for you. Just getting that stretch into the mat or the ground, wherever you're at, and then leaning forward and back and just easing into the stretch. This other one, I put my fist into my hands so I could rotate my elbows. So play around with this one, rotate your wrist around, just explore your movement, explore how your body feels. Next, we're going to go into an ankle mobility stretch. This is going to be really great if you have tight hips and you have tight ankles. You want to keep your heel down and press your knee over your middle toe. I like to push down on my knee and then also try to hold my heel down. For a lot of people, I tend to see a lack of mobility. If your ankles are immobile or don't have a lot of movement, that means your knees and hips are going to have to take over. So by improving our ankle mobility, we could alleviate some back pain as well as knee pain and hip pain. So here we're just focusing on driving that kneecap over the middle toe while trying to keep my heels down. And at the end of the point of the stretch, I'm trying to pull my toes up towards my nose. And lastly, just some hip wiggles, I guess you could call these, but just starting to add a little more movement as I prepare for a more dynamic warm-up with higher intensity. Let me know what you think of this routine, if you found it helpful. I would love some feedback. If you're looking for more, please reach out.